Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Invite everyone to take their seats in the sanctuary and welcome all those who are here in person and those who are joining us virtually to daven and welcome in Shabbat as the sun is setting a little later, but you can always welcome in Shabbat earlier, extended. We need it. And so we're happy to invite the Shabbat angels in and our own angels in on Shabbat. We'll begin the tefillah with Yedid Nefesh on page 10 or page 252. We turn now to page 11 or page 254, the Chona Ranana.
Shiro da Jonah.
Page 258, Mizmor, Shir Adonai, Shir Hadash, Ki Niflot Hasa, Shalom, Hodi Adonai, Shiratan. Har Yom Adonai, Kol Haaretz Mitzvot, Ranenu V'Zamero, Zamro Adonai.
Lifnei Adonai, Kiva, Lishpot. ישפוט הבל בצדק בימים ובמשעים.
מלאך ירגזים עמים לשפט ומתנים צרץ. משה Page 260.
Adonai,
Shabbat Shalom to everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
I have lived in Israel a couple of years earlier in my life, and there was one summer between one of the years that I lived in Israel that I was spending the summer living in Israel and studying at Pardes, which is a traditional yeshiva, kind of open, egalitarian somewhat yeshiva. It's changed over time. Living with some of my friends from camp in Jerusalem and having kind of the summer of dreams, as some people have in Israel, which meant that Shabbat, we had time to go to Machane Yehuda to buy all the beautiful vegetables and make a beautiful Shabbat dinner and go to Kabbalat Shabbat and then come home and sing to the wee hours of the morning. And Shabbat, of course, ends very late in the summer. And the experience of Shabbat that summer left me wanting. I had grown up with Shabbat, but not with a traditional observance of Shabbat. And my experience that summer, though I had beautiful Shabbatot at summer camp and many positive experience of Shabbat, it was that summer that I felt like either I would have to live in Israel in order to experience a Shabbat like that, or I would have to change the Shabbat that I had if I were going to move back to America. Clearly, I made a choice there, although I've been back and forth forever. And when I came home, because of the story and experience of that summer, I changed my observance. I started to not spend money on Shabbat, which I had to travel actually for my internship in school, but that was the only traveling I did. I really changed my observance and put a lot more boundaries on my observance because I wanted a storied Shabbat like I had in Israel. There's a famous essay by Chaim Bialik called Halacha and Agadah. It's called Law and Lore. And his point is that we often see these two dynamic things, Halacha, law, and Agadah, story or law, or story or legend, as opposed, as opposites. And the case that he makes is that they're one of the same. If story is, he calls it like steam, then halacha, law, is ice. If story, he says, is a smile, agadah is a smile, then halacha is a judgment. But he says that they're born of the same thing and that they move one into the other. The story I had that summer in Israel forced me to say, if I want this, I actually have to make some decisions. I have to create law. You can't just get the fantasy, the beauty, without creating some rigor or discipline in order to create the experience that makes the story possible. This week's parasha opens with a very hard moment, which it says basically that God spoke to Moshe after the death of Nadel and Avihu, the sons of Aharon, who died a couple of parashiot ago in Parashat Shmini because they offered strange fire. And because of that story, much law is given on that story. Many things that you can't do. And in this week's opening of the story, after it speaks of the fact that they've died, Aharon is told not to go into the Holy of Holies, basically unless he's instructed, lest he die. So it's another example, which we don't think about normally, which is that the story of Nadel and Avihu and their very tragic deaths actually bore a host of laws. You can't drink, you shouldn't go into the Holy of Holies, you shouldn't be haughty and want to overtake your teachers. Many ways that they translate the story of Nadel and Avihu into something of meaning, because I think partially because it's so tragic, there had to be some way to give it some grounding. And interestingly enough, towards the middle of the parasha, we have this very famous phrase, pasuk, Ushmartem et chukotai vet mishpatai, asher ya'aseh otam ha'adam, v'chai bahem, ani Adonai. You shall keep my laws and my rules, by the pursuit of which human beings shall live by them. I am God. Essentially God saying, my laws and my rules are meant to be lived by. And the voice that the commentaries add is, and not die by them. You shall live by laws and not die by them. And we have the echo right before us of the story of Nadel and Avihu, who actually didn't live by them. They died by them. So we have that echo behind in the story. But then following, and there are many beautiful commentaries on the notion of chai bahem, that we should live passionately through the law, that we should be dedicated, that actually true life can only be made possible through living the Torah, that there's no definition of life that is without Torah. There's a beautiful, the Kotzker Rabbi says, and this is, an interesting one for the Kotzker Rabbi, who is kind of tough in a lot of ways, but he says that one must perform the commandments with life and with enthusiasm, and not merely by rote. All these beautiful teachings about what it means to chai bahem, to live by them. But what follows this verse are a bunch of all the things that you shouldn't do sexually, which includes the prohibition for homosexuality, which appears in this week's parasha. The prohibition of a man to lie with a man, which is for thousands of millennia have caused many people to die, honestly, to be outcast, to be murdered, and in our country today still to have so many laws and rules that are being generated in 2022 to say those who don't follow certain sexual standards that are expected, that originated in the Torah, in the Bible, are actually can't have a chai. They can't have a chayim, a life, in the same way as those who don't identify that way. And this is where I go back to Bialik, the notion of halacha and agadah. This law has borne a lot of stories, deeply painful stories of families leaving aside children, or communities casting people out because of being LGBTQ. At the time, they didn't even have initials in the ways that we have today. How much sorrow and story born out of this law. And yet, through the stories of so many people who were brave and courageous to say, this is who I am, and I am going to live by them, live by the Torah, I am going to be seen as a person who's created in God's image, new laws were born, new tshuvot, new questions were asked to create new stories and new laws, like in our country, the passing of gay marriage, or even in the Jewish tradition, the school that Grace goes to, for many years, JTS didn't allow anyone who was out, gay or lesbian or bisexual, to be out in the school. And those things have changed because of the stories of each individual who was brave and courageous to tell them. And so what's powerful is, through stories, we create new laws, and laws also can birth new stories. Some of those stories, as I've said, can be painful, and some laws can be deeply painful. But Bialik's primary teaching, which is, I think, the essence of our tradition, and in many ways the essence of our lives, is we can't see them as opposites. We have to see them as companions. And so I bless us on this Shabbat for all those who have true life in them, that we all be able to live with passion and vigor and with the enthusiasm of being seen and express the image of God that is the very essence of who we are, which is not our choice. It is who we've been born to be. And that in the ways we think about what it means to have dreams, which is also what Bialik says about the story, to have visions, just like that Jerusalem Shabbat that I had, to taste something that was so special, that we don't let our dreams stay in fantasy, but actually ground them in something that produces reality. And on this Shabbat of Achrei Mot, we all want to chai bahem. We all want to have the chance to live by this gorgeous tradition, this beautiful Torah that is ours, that has plenty of stories that bore beautiful laws, and plenty of hard things that bore new stories. So let us not forget, in the midst of hard things, that we can birth new stories. And so that we all together, and particularly Shabbat is the greatest example which Bialik speaks to, that Shabbat is both an incredible story of the queen, of the bride, of the beauty, of love and harmony and peace and justice, that we manifest that beauty and that story in the way we live it and live by it. So we turn now to L'Chadodi on page 23 or page 262. completed. Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
I have to say that, like, it's like, that's good Shabbos. Like, there has to be some kind of, like, right? Like, you can't just sit down and be obedient in that sense. You have to, like, get a little, freilich, right?
You gotta live by them.
You gotta get high by them. Yeah, you have to live by them. Shabbos. There we go. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, page 27 or page 266. We'll daven and then join together for Magadlu, which is about 8 lines from the bottom. Sadik, Katamari, Frock, there is Babilon. Nehagir ki ashaya suhuri nedom latamo. Adonai Malach, page 29. Lavesh Adonai Yitzhak Tikon Teva Matzilot Nachon Kisafar Mikolot Mayim Rabbi Madi.
Hidotacha nemnu me'od levetecha nava kodesh Adonai leorech yamin. It's for Baruch Hu, page 39a.
ברך את אדוני המבורך. ברך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
You may be seated. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'shamayim
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, עמדי ורבי.
Page 40.
כי הם חיינו לאורך ימינו, והם נגע יומם ולילה, ואהבתך תסיר ממנו לעולם יהים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל.
Shema. אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם מאוד על ידך, והיית תחתוך בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. אדוני לכם אמת. Page 43.
האל הנפלא לנו מצווינו ושלום לך. השם נפשנו בחיים נומק. צות ומופתים בהם. שכחו.
We pray for redemption, top of page 44.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה מרים ובני ישראל, לך אנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו
pray for peace on page 45.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Shalom Avivenu Malkeinu Chosro Leinu Sukashem.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ועל מה דיבה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחיי חונו יום אחד וחיי דחוש בית ישראל פגלה ובזמן קריב וימרו אמן יש אדם מברך לעולם מעמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מנפו וחצה ושירתה תוש וחצה ונחמתה תמירה בעמה וימרו אמן.
We face Yerushalayim for the silent Amidah, page 47 or page 296. with Vayachulu, page 53 or page 314.
ויעלו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם ויחללים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה וישבעו ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו כי בו שבה מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו אלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב אלוהי שרה אלוהי רבקה אלוהי רחל אלוהי לאה הגדול הגיבור והנורא עליון קונה שמיים וארץ.
מגן אבות בדברו מחיה מתים במאמרו האל הקדוש שאין כמוהו המניח לעמו ביום שבת קודשו כי בם רצה להניח להם לפניו נבון וירא ופחד ונודה לשמו בכל יום תמיד מעון הברכות אל ההודעות אדון השלום מקדש השבת ומברך שביעי ומניח בקדושה לעמים קדוש נעונג תחל למעשה ראשית אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו רצה במנוחתנו קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך צוונו בטובך ושמחנו בישועתך ותהל ליבנו לעבדך באמת והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה ורצון שבת קודשך וינוחו וישראל מקדשי שמך ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Continue with Kaddish Shalom, page 54 or page 314.
יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה ויעמד דבקרתי ועמיך מלכותי בחייכון ובמכון ובחייתך בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך ויעלם ורביה יתברך
Shabbat, Yipar Vitram Minase, Yitadar Vitala Vitala Shemet B'Rasha B'Rechu, Leila Minko Berchata V'Shirata, Tishvechata V'Nachemata, B'Amiram Be'ama V'Yimru Amen.
אמן. תתקבץ אותנו ואותון דכל ישראל קדם אבונדי וישמעיה ויאמרו
אמן. ישלם רבים שמעיה וחיים עלינו ולכל ישראל ויאמרו אמן.
עושה שלום
עושה שלום עלינו
This Shabbat, we're excited to celebrate with the Bolton Solman family. Joshua's bar mitzvah, and we invite Josh up to say Kiddush for us this evening. And you can find Kiddush on page 55 or 318 for those who are using the Sim Shalom.
We also have, if some members could pass out the cups of Kiddush so everyone can have a little, it's not schnapps, but it's a little juice. So maybe we'll sing something as it's being passed out. I am
atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho ve'ava u'ratzon hini lanu zikaron l'maseh bereishit Kuyu yom tehila lemikra kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim kivanu v'harta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodsheha ve'ava u'ratzon Hin hatanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen.
L'chaim, l'chaim. And we continue with our blessing for the children. We invite any children who are yet to be b'nei mitzvah to join us here under the chuppah for a beautiful blessing. Elohim kesar rivka rachel v'leah yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Amen. We continue with Aleinu, turning to page 56 or 320. Aleinu l'shabach l'adon hakol l'tekrula Shelo atanu k'geharatzon V'lo samanu k'mishpachot adama Shelo samchekinu kahem V'goralenu k'chol amonam V'anachnu Livnei melech Moshe melachim HaKadosh Baruch
ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Seated. We invite those who are in mourning or marking a yahrzeit to remain standing if you're able, and those on Zoom to unmute for Mourners Kaddish, page 58 or page 324. Yitgadgal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah ve'alma divrach kirtei ve'amlich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yomeichon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yesh me Rabba mevarach le'olam olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach ויתפאר, ויתרומם, ויתנשא, ויתהדר, ויתעלה, ויתהלל, שמי תקודשה ברכו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירם בעלמה ואמרו אמן.
אמן.
יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom to everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
So once again, we wish a big Mazal Tov to Joshua Stolman and his parents, Stacy Bolton, and James Stolman, and his sisters, Eliza and Rachel Stolman, and his grandfather, Stephen Stolman, on Josh's upcoming bar mitzvah, and all the family that has come from, I'm assuming, near and far. We welcome you and can't wait to continue the celebration tomorrow morning. We also say Mazal Tov to Jonathan Simons and his parents, Esther, Levi Simons, and Garth Simons, and his sister Daniela, on Jonathan's becoming a bar mitzvah at the Jewish Center this Shabbat. And we also say Mazal Tov to Caitlin, Michael, and Violet Cooper on the birth of their son and brother, Charlie Wyatt Cooper. And we also extend a Mazal Tov to Charlie's grandparents, Liz and Jay Cooper, his aunt and uncle, Ariana and Eric Berry, and his cousins, Maisie and Celeste Berry. Mazal Tov to all. And we also send our condolences to Amy and David Hershey Webb and their daughter Lily and their entire family on the passing of Amy's mother, Patricia Rose Schwartz. Tomorrow morning, we'll gather together here for Shabbat services at 9:30 and also virtually, so those are welcome to join us however you can. We look forward to being together. And following Shabbat services, you can join us for Kiddush, which will be on the community house roof. We're hoping for good weather, and we'll gather for Kiddush. And our early childhood families will be gathering on the 3rd floor starting at 11 o'clock for services for children birth through 7 years old. And after we enjoy a nice long summer Shabbat, we will gather for Aravit and Havdalah on Zoom virtually at 8:45 p.m. And a note that this week we get to welcome in a new month. It is the month of ER, and so Sunday morning we will be having Minyan here in person and virtually. So please join us, and that will be at 9:30. So you can make your way in, 9:30, maybe a little breakfast after. We'd love to pray with you, and of course with Hallel and Torah reading. And then also Monday is Rosh Chodesh as well, so we'll have a 2-day Rosh Chodesh. And we have an in-person security training that will be coming up on Monday at 12 o'clock to 1:30 p.m. as we strive for BJ to be a place that is both physically secure and an emotionally safe place for all who come here. We invite you to join us for an active threat training session, and this will be done with our security team. Please join us. That'll be Monday, and on Tuesday, we will also once again go back to our regular Minyan schedule. And this week, we have many Yoms that are coming up. And Felicia will tell us a little more about that.
Speaking of Israel, in Israel, Tuesday evening is Yom HaZikaron, Erev Yom HaZikaron, which is Memorial Day. Unlike here, which is just an extended weekend and often a picnicking kind of weekend, in Israel, it's definitely no picnic. There is not a family. Most families in Israel have had someone in their family die in one of the wars, and it's a very solemn day and a very painful day in Israel. And we will mark it in our evening minyan on Tuesday, as well as in Shacharit and Mincha on Tuesday to Wednesday. But we wanted to share. We are co-sponsors of a joint Memorial Day ceremony, which is brought together through Compatants for Peace and the Parents Circle from Israeli Jewish families, and Palestinian families who've lost loved ones to terrorist attacks and kidnappings and wars. And speaking of story and law, the stories that each of these individuals and families have, they've decided to make a different law, which is to say we will not suffer alone, and we're going to build a different kind of society by having a joint Memorial Day ceremony. So this is against the grain, and some might say it's a desecration or it's giving in to the other side. We deeply believe that if there is going to be a future story for Israel and Palestinians, for Israelis and Palestinian Arabs, Arab citizens of Israel, that there has to be a new story to tell. And there are organizations on the ground like Parent Circle, like Combatants for Peace, like, Kids for Peace. There's numerous grassroots organizations in Israel who are trying to tell a different story. And we want to be part of building that story. There is a joint moment. It's very moving and hard, but the ceremony is at 1:30 our time on Tuesday. My class is on Tuesday at 12:30, and we're going to end early, so anyone who would like to attend virtually the ceremony can do so. All the information is in the Kol Yesharun, it's not the Kol Yesharun anymore, it's the community email, as well as on the website, and you can register there. And then there's a very challenging but powerful transition on Wednesday evening as Yom HaZikaron morphs into Yom HaAtzmaut, and this year we'll mark that in our Mincha Mariv, Dan, and Shira Averbuch, we hope, with some poetry and with some transition to this moving from the memorial to a celebration. And so we hope, and I think we're the only synagogue that closes on Yom HaAtzmaut in celebration and support and recognizing that this is a day of celebration. And so we close as an institution, as a community for Yom HaAtzmaut, just like we would close for July 4th. So we'll be closed on Thursday. And there'll be a Hallel, I think, on Thursday at Minyan, amongst other things.
Well, and finally, we are making our way Sinai bound. We are not only counting the Omer, but we as a community are making a journey toward creating our own community covenant, and we want you to join us. We're studying Perkei Avot together, both weekly and also through a beautiful booklet that was just put out. We invite you to join us in this reflective guide for Perkei Avot, which you can find in the back of the sanctuary, a hard copy. It's also virtual for after Shabbat. And on Tuesday night, we're going to have the second part of our Torah-bound series, exploring Perkei Avot with Rabbi Noah Kushner. We're very much looking forward to that. And finally, we invite you to add your voice. It's a community covenant. We want to hear your thoughts, your reflections, your Torah, and we will do that through this journal, and you can use both the website and also the handwritten journals. Any questions about this process, you can find any of us, and we also will be offering different questions each week to guide the process of creating the covenants and thinking about our Torah and our values. And with that, we wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom, and we will turn to Shalom Aleichem on page 73 or 722, inviting in our Shabbat angels.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hashem, Malachei Yom,
Adonai Yivarech et Amav Bashalom. Wishing you a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
A blessed Shabbat ahead.